I would say for the longest time now, there was only a few select amount of players that actually played with Code of the Juggernaut. We played with it a bunch, especially back in Warmine. We did a few builds with it, but it was just lacking, especially in the super department. Well, no longer. Sandbox 2.1.4 has introduced 2 buffs directly to this subclass. The Fist of Havoc shoulder charge energy cost has been reduced by 83%, and the Trample perk can now trigger the energy return every half a second instead of every 1 second. Needless to say, boys, it's nasty. Now let's break down this subclass real quick, guys, and talk about what exotics pair really well here, because unfortunately some of our exotics that you would think would go well with this subclass doesn't activate when you're in your super, and I also want to discuss where this subclass is the most viable. So first up, let's take a look at the perks found on Code of the Juggernaut. We've got Frontal Assault, strike an enemy with this melee ability to reload your weapon and increase your weapon stability. Talk about the best stability buff you will ever witness in your life. We've also got Reversal here. Melee kills immediately trigger health regeneration. The beautiful thing about that one is as you're in your super and you're actually shoulder charging your enemies, you're able to trigger health regeneration. Now the perk that got directly buffed, Trample, destroying enemies with Fist of Havoc, extends its duration. Now the extension there is pretty crazy. You see how much it's jumping up with each kill. And now that it's able to be activated every half a second instead of every second, running through strikes or running through pretty much any PvE activity can result in you just chaining kill after kill, which is why you don't really want to use your Fist of Havoc smash. Like, unless you're just trying to kill that opponent that's trying to get away from you, sure, that's fine, but for the most part, you want to be taking advantage of Trample by shoulder charging your enemies. Now, the final perk found on the subclass, Knockout. Critically wounding an enemy or breaking their shields increase your melee range and damage. Now, the beautiful thing about that perk is that it doesn't just benefit you against the opponent that procs Knockout. No, if I kill an opponent or an ad and they proc Knockout, Knockout is now activated, meaning the next opponent that I hit will take increased melee damage, which is super beneficial in both PvE and in PvP. Overall, guys, everything in this subclass synergizes so well. It is one of my favorite subclasses in the game. The only thing lacking has been the super. Now, moving on to Greg, we need to talk damage values, as well as the exotics that do and don't work. First up, ACD feedbacks does not increase super damage. Kind of a bummer, but not as big of a bummer as Wormgod Caress. We found this out months ago, but Wormgod Caress doesn't activate while you are in your super. It seems like it should activate, considering that you're landing melee hits. You're proccing the perk Reversal with each of these shoulder charges, so you would think Wormgod would work here, and man, would it be nasty to pair with Code of the Juggernaut. Unfortunately, it does not proc. Now, I did try it with Dune Marchers, and Dune Marchers actually does work. It activates linear actuators, and you can see it here hitting enemies. But 2 reasons why I wouldn't do this. Number 1, it's kind of buggy. Like, you see the arc damage that's hitting all the enemies, but then you'll activate linear actuators again, and then it stops chaining arc damage. I don't know what the deal is. But the number 1 reason why you don't want to use Dune Marchers is because you don't want linear actuators killing all of your ads. You need them to keep feeding you super. So I wouldn't recommend those 3 exotics. Now, the exotic that I would recommend is, of course, Syntheseps. So let's talk damage values. First up, our super here was hitting 3,926 per shoulder hit on Greg. Now, the super with Knockout was hitting 4,907. Now, the super with biotic enhancements was hitting 5,889, and the super with Knockout plus biotic enhancements was hitting 7,361. Now, to put all of this damage in perspective, a regular Fist of Havoc smash with something like biotic enhancements is only hitting 4,389. So when you're using bottom tree, guys, it's much better for you to just consistently keep hitting your shoulder charge, as it doesn't burn up nearly as much super and it does more damage. So guys, overall, the changes made to Code of the Juggernaut, very noticeable, very good changes. It has completely elevated this subclass. I mean, already the neutral game of this subclass I felt was the best amongst all striker classes, especially for my more aggressive players. This super change right here has made this a monster for both PvP and for PvE. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.